Well, good morning, everybody. Just to say good morning to all of you. We hope you're doing well and fine. It's great to see you this morning. It's good to have Nick Gromicko hosting this thing for us this morning and teaching us how to make money on our business. I will tell you the Q&A is where you can post your questions, and we'll try to get them to Nick as soon as we can. And if you want to chat, just go into the chat box. You can either chat to all of us or to any individuals. And again, welcome. We're glad to have you with us. And we're going to turn over to Nick and let Nick do the show for us.
Hi, guys. How are you? So, financial situations are a lot like snowflakes, I would say. Everybody's is individual. And for us to have a webinar here today, you're going to have to pitch in. So you're going to have to tell me, what you're most interested in, retirement, your credit score, repairing that, or trying to save more money, trying to make more money. Inflation is a big topic, which I know a lot about, and I can help with that a lot, what to do about it. So maybe we should start by looking at some questions. And some of you are going to have to just be open up to this stuff and sort of give me a situation you're dealing with and see if I can help at all. Inspectors are notoriously bad at keeping up with inflation. We have at the House of Horrors in Boulder, Colorado, we have an inspection museum. And in that inspection museum are some old reports from the late 70s and early 80s. And inside those inspection reports, some of them have the actual fees they were charging back then. And they're not terribly different than what we have now. How can it possibly be that 40 years, or maybe even in some cases a half a century later, that our prices really haven't increased that much? That's, I think, the fact that the inspectors ignore inflation to a degree in their professional lives, they may also be doing it in their personal lives. And that's harmful because when you're all done with this, you want something to show for it, and you don't want inflation to just eat up, everything you've accumulated in life. And so to avoid that situation late in life, you want to be in assets that benefit from inflation. Inflation is really good to some people, and so you want to be those people. It's horrible to most people, but it's actually very, very good to some people. I'm sure Warren Buffett, who owns a railroad, would love if tomorrow the price of food doubled and his bread and his milk went up from $3 to $6, because that also means his railroad is now worth $1 trillion instead of $500 billion. So you want to have assets that benefit from inflation, in my opinion, because I don't think inflation is transitory. I've said this long before the government stopped saying it. I posted it all over InterNACHI's message board. This is not transitory. This is not something that's going to go away in a few months. And I think it's going to keep continuing. I don't know if you saw this new bill they just passed, but it's more spending. So inflation isn't caused by prices rising. Prices rising are the result of inflation. Inflation, in fact, prices don't inflate. That's silly to say, well, inflation is prices rising. No, prices don't inflate. They rise. You don't inflate. Inflate means go all directions. I'm an antique collector, so if you get one of my old dictionaries out from maybe from 1910 or something, you'll see inflation is defined in one sentence as the inflating of the money supply. So people often in these days talk about inflation as if it's prices rising. That's actually the symptom. The disease is inflating the money supply. So why would the Federal Reserve inflate the money supply if it's bad for us? I mean, who wants higher prices? Well, they inflate the money supply because our government only lives on twice as much money as we provide it. So there's a cost to government, just like there's a cost to having your cable TV or whatever. And all of our taxes combined only pay for half of government. So the other half has to come from somewhere. Can't default. But it is kind of a default, because what they do is they go to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve prints that money and gives it to the government. Well, fine and dandy. Well, you don't get a free lunch. That money they print shows up somewhere, and it shows up in inflation. So there's two ways to pay for government. You can just pay with taxes, which we can't anymore. Everybody's taxed out completely. And the government's spending twice as much as it's taxing us right now. So even if we pay twice as much in taxes, which is absurd, it'd be all of our money almost, we just barely cover government. Or we can pay for government and the dishonest way. And the dishonest way is to inflate the money supply, and we pay for it in higher prices because it causes all of everything to go up. If anybody's heard of you've heard of the motel chain Motel 6, I'm assuming.
Oh, yes. Yeah, been around a long time.
Motel 6 was a corporation that formed when I was born, the exact same year. And do you know where they came up with the name?
$6 a night, wasn't it?
$6 a night. Now, today it's like maybe $60 a night. Still a good deal, right? But the price, the rooms haven't grown tenfold. When you go to a Motel 6 room, it isn't 10 times bigger than it was in 1962 when I was born. So that just shows you that inflation causes the purchasing power of your dollar to diminish. So what you could buy for $6 back in 1962 now requires 60 of these pieces of paper. So that means it's, in my lifetime, the dollar has lost already 90% of its value. So for people to say, oh, we don't have to worry about the dollar ever going to zero. Well, it's already gone in a century, it's already gone more than 99%. So if you go back 100 years, what you could buy for a dollar costs $100 today. So it's lost all of it, 99% of its purchasing power. It's only got another percent to go. All fiat money, all paper money throughout human history goes to zero. And right now we're seeing that tail end where we're really seeing the money devalue rapidly. And we have to think about what we're going to do to survive that. And as I said in the beginning, when I started talking about inflation, inflation is a friend to a lot of people and a horrible enemy to most. So we want to think about assets that we can accumulate that benefit from inflation. So I don't know if that's maybe sort of a start off, a launch to someone maybe asking some questions. I guess it's very difficult for me to just sit here and talk.
I understand. Hey, we got one
I'd love to
comment here.
interact.
Can you see the Q&A on your screen?
I cannot. Do you know how I see? Oh, I do.
Yeah, slide down to the bottom, should be a Q&A button. Anyway, you know, a lot of times, Nick, what I'm hearing from the guys in the field is that how can I raise my inspection fees? You know, how can I make more money? And, you know, the silly thing is realtors fees go up every time the price of a home goes up. So that 3% or 6% they're sharing, yeah, that increases. When the homes used to be 100,000, now they're $500,000 or higher. So their fees increase, but the inspectors, we just didn't take that jump with it. So what's your suggestion for inspectors that trying to get their fee up and make a reasonable rate for their service?
So I point to government again as the blame for this in part, because with licensing and especially standards of practices, they've commoditized us a little bit. And so that a consumer comes to believe that a home inspection is a home inspection is a home inspection. And whenever you're commoditized, you're going to have difficulty raising prices. So you have to really try to distinguish yourself above and beyond that. The problem is that costs money, and the average homeowner only buys a house every 7 years. So you spend a lot of money trying to break away from everybody else, only to succeed at landing a client, only to have them not come back to your store essentially for another decade. I'm trying to think of something where people willingly pay high prices for it. And I'm going to say like Whole Foods, which is owned by Jeff Bezos and Amazon, right? If you've ever been to your local grocery store chain down there and then go into a Whole Foods, you'll see a drastic difference in price. But when you walk through the Whole Foods store, it's not empty, is it?
No, it's got people in it.
Okay, so Whole Foods has the problem that home inspectors have. I mean, people think that, bread is bread, milk is milk. Why should I go to the Whole Foods store, right? And there's a lot of people that won't, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who do. And if you look at the grocery chain business, I mean, their margins are really small. They're small compared to home inspectors. They're almost operating on like a couple of percent margin, grocery stores. Yet Whole Foods has the highest margin of any grocery chain in the world.
Wow.
And so it's done something, right, to distinguish itself that's different than other grocery stores. And when you think of your sort of in your mind's eye of all the grocery stores, out here, they're like, I don't know what's down there, but maybe Safeway or something like that, or Kroger's or something. I think
Kroger's, HEB, yeah.
Yeah. So they're similar. They are similar, right? And they're
Correct.
similarly priced, and Whole Foods sort of stands out and succeeds that way. And Jeff Bezos, no dummy. I mean, he's done it twice now. He's done, Amazon, which is an amazing thing. And he's done something bigger, which is the web servers, right? I mean, almost the whole world is operating on his servers, including InterNACHI. So he's about the only businessman that really has done something globally amazing twice. They don't even have anything to do with each other hardly, other than Amazon was on his servers. And so he's not a dummy. And what did he buy? Whole Foods. He could have bought Kroger's, right? He didn't.
Oh, yeah, easily. Yeah.
Right. He could have bought Kroger's with his pocket change. He did not. So you should look at your home inspection business and say, how can I become something like that? How can I be the very best of the best? There is a sort of a cushion where you're going to have to almost remake up your business, totally change yourself, reinvent yourself almost, even to all the real estate agents that work with you. And like inflation, I think that should be done honestly. So you should go back to all your clients and say, listen, I know this sounds crazy, but we're going to raise our prices $100. And let me explain to you why it's in your interest to continue to recommend me as your home inspector to your clients. Even though I've confessed to you right now, I'm not creeping these prices up in the background on you. I'm going to raise the prices come January 1st, $100. Now, let me explain to you why it's in your best interest as a real estate agent to continue to recommend me, and why it's in the best interest to your clients to continue to recommend me, even though you know darn well that I'm about $100 more than everybody. Remember, what do real estate agents who are really good want? It's not sales. I was a top producing real estate agent for a decade. I didn't want sales. I got plenty of sales. I'm making plenty of money. I did 120 deals a year when I was a real estate agent with only one partner. Can you imagine that? That's just me and a partner doing a closing every 3 days. So, yeah, I burned back those days. We had big Xerox machines. They would come in.
You didn't sleep at all, did you?
No, I had 4 Xerox machines. Now, why would I have 4 $10,000 Xerox machines? Because we're doing so many deals that we can't even afford for one to even jam for an hour. So Xerox loved me. But what do real estate agents really want? They really want referrals into the future. They want to think about their careers based on not having any problems. And where do a lot of the problems occur? Home inspections, right? So home inspectors do 2 things that real estate agents all hate. They either don't find defects that are there, which causes them a problem later on, or they find defects that aren't there.
Yeah,
the problem right then, right? So I would suggest using those 2 lines. I would say, listen, you're a real estate agent. You want a long career, and you want your clients taken care of. You want referrals. You want people talking good about you, not that you recommended a bad inspector. There's 2 things you hate. I know you hate them both. Here they are. I don't do either, but I need an extra $100, and I want to remain your go-to top-notch #1 best inspector in your town. And I would say a letter to all of your real estate agents being overly forthright about it may even cause you to get other agents and their friends to go your way. Remember, real estate agents aren't that good at picking home inspectors. They're really not. So, but they understand price. and they understand when someone thinks they're so good that they can charge a little bit more than everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I would think that that would be a way to go. It's maybe a little bit scary in a way. I mean, can you imagine an ad that says we charge more? I mean, very few companies run it, right? Maybe Mercedes-Benz does.
Yeah.
Right. Or maybe Rolls-Royce does, or maybe Rolex does. But most inspectors wouldn't do it. They try to creep up the price little by little, charge mileage fees and all kind of other nonsense, right? To try to justify it.
And they still don't make a good living doing that.
Still don't do it.
On all the auxiliary services, they still don't do it.
Yeah, and can you imagine that? You know, I've been in this now 30 years with InterNACHI. How many times I've seen people your age, Paul, that have worked 15 years in our industry, hard, and did great work for the world, did great work for fellow Americans, helped a lot of people, probably saved more lives than a hospital emergency room, when you think about all the safety defects they discovered. And yet, at the end of those 15 years, when they're worn out, they have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
It's just absolutely heartbreaking. So don't be one of those people.
I agree. Oh, hey, I'll give you a break. We got some questions here for you.
All
Did
right.
you get it open on your screen?
Yeah. So let me see what we could do. I don't understand the first question quite. Indicate the increase or in quotation month or two in advance of the action. Yeah. Okay. So I think we just went through the first one, which was, you know, indicate an increase on quotation month or two in advance. You know, I would be very forthright and almost brag about the price increase in a way, since you're going to have to, it's going to come out anyway. You know, you might as well brag about it. I can give you an example, maybe with regard to dating. For a while, I was single in my old life. I mean, in my 50s, I was a single man for a few years. And so I went on Match.com and went on 63 first dates or whatever. But I'm not 6 foot tall. And it turns out that women like men who are 6 foot tall or taller. So I would put 6 foot tall in my ad. But the first sentence I had in the text part was that I'm actually not 6 foot tall. I'm 5'11" 1/4, but in school I was taught to round up. Don't ask me to calculate the volume of a truncated cone, but I said I went up. Anyway, that little bit of humor and that forthrightness that I'm really not 6 foot. I would say that almost all the dates I went on mentioned that was the reason they clicked and went to it. So I think that if you have something that you're trying to maybe hide, the best thing to do is just ride with it out front. Honesty is the best policy. I mean, everybody in my life around me, my family members, keep telling me not to be so honest and forthright, keep my mouth shut. And at this point in my age, I'm 60. I mean, I'm not changing, but it served me well. So I think maybe I've offended a lot of people, certainly in this industry. I'm sure I've offended some people, but generally it's done pretty well because at least you know what you're getting. So, and I think in price increases, honesty and forthrightness is the best policy. You can almost brag about the fact that you're charging more, I would say. Okay, so let's go down here. So Melvin says a flat rate price it as a percent of the property value. So let me say this: no one ever got rich charging what something's worth. So if you have a formula that uses like the formula I invented on our fee calculator to help, because that's what people wanted, that charges fairly. I would say that it's probably not something you should use. The amount you should charge anybody for anything is the amount that they'll pay. That's the best price to charge somebody. You're in business to make a living. If you could charge $2,000 for home inspections, let's say it's possible. Let's say you could. Somehow you figured out a way to charge $2,000. Morally, you should. That's the correct market price for something, what people will pay for it. So I don't like these formulas too much because they try to reach a fair price. And a fair price on the businessman side, in most cases, is not enough. I just don't think it is. They're forgetting something. They're forgetting all the work you put into this to become a great inspector. They're forgetting your profit. They're forgetting your risk factors. They're forgetting a lot of things, right? I wrote that story about Pablo Picasso in a New York restaurant eating, and one of his fans saw him eating, recognized it as Pablo Picasso, the famous artist, ran up to him and said, "Oh, you're Pablo Picasso. I'm a big fan," stuff like that, bothered him while he was eating dinner. Then she handed him a napkin and a pen and said, could you scribble me something, on a napkin? So he scribbled the waiter carrying the parfaits on the napkin. And as he handed back the napkin back to her, he said, "That'll be $50,000, ma'am." And she said, $50,000, it only took you a few minutes. He said, "No, ma'am, that took me 50 years to be able to do that." So, if you charge by a formula, unfortunately, you're probably going to leave some things out, which is mainly all the things you've had to do to become great. And then on top of that, you probably leave out a lot of profit, because you shouldn't be charging what you can't buy watermelons for $1 and sell them for $1. Even if you buy a bigger truck, it's not going to work.
Yeah, good point.
Don't be afraid to take those prices up and away, right? Let's say, so the next one is, what are your top 3 financial tips or goals for a brand new home inspector? Well, the first thing is, you've revealed something to me you should never reveal to anyone else in that question. Does everybody know what it is?
Brand new home inspector.
Right. So here's the trick I did when I was young and started out in the home inspection business. I was outside of Philadelphia, which is called the main line, which is the average price back then, just 20 years ago, was $940,000. So it's a good area to be in. It's called the main line of main line because it goes from New York to Washington, D.C., and it's a very wealthy area. But I went into the horrible areas of Philadelphia for 30 days first. And I'm not sure that that's available to you or not, but I went into the inner cities. The inner cities out east, for whatever reason, I don't know why, they don't pay with checks or credit cards. They pay with cash. So I went into those cities where no inspector wanted to go and did the worst homes ever, like just complete messes, one after another, after another, after another, for a month, and collected all that cash, by the way. Don't tell the IRS. And I cut my teeth there first. And I didn't actually advertise in my market, even though I had opened up as a new inspector. I didn't advertise. I didn't let anybody know I was a new inspector. Then after I became sharp, I felt, did all my courses, did all my education, did 30 days in the inner city. I came back to the market that I wanted, which was the main line. And I'm honest, but I'm also a terrible liar. So when I walked into a real estate office and I told them that I'm the best inspector in town as a new inspector, and I looked everybody in the eyes at the meetings and everything, and anybody else I met, and in my marketing, I touted I was the very best. It's because I believed it. People believe me because I believed it. They look me in the eyes and like, this guy really is the best. So what you don't want to do is to, what they call in legal terms, poison your own well. So you don't want to poison a well, right? You don't want to go as a brand new inspector into your market weak. So if there's any possibility that you can get technically strong one way or the other, and there's a lot of ways to do it, right? Do that first. Take a month of time and do that first. Then come back into your marketing will even look better. It'll look different to you after 30 days. And you'll feel stronger. And so your marketing, you'll feel more willing to have a marketing campaign that supports your contention that you're the best home inspector in town. Most people's marketing, especially new inspectors, are just saying, hey, I'm like everybody else. I'm a member of InterNACHI, and I'm licensed, and I'm insured, and I'm thorough, and I'm on time. And did I say I was thorough? I'm thorough. You see my point? But if you are strong going into something, almost like Mike Tyson, let's say, and going into a fight, right? Or Muhammad Ali, maybe, there's almost a level, and it's hard to say this for people in Texas because they're opposite of this. There's almost a level of cockiness you're going to acquire in your marketing. And not only does your marketing have to support your contention, you're the best home inspector in town, but your price has to support that contention. You can't possibly say you're the best inspector in town if your price conflicts with that. Americans don't know anything about home inspections. But if your price supports a contention, it's high enough so it supports a contention that you're the best home inspector in town, that actually makes it more true. It also financially allows you to be that, because with the extra money, there's nothing worse than a broke inspector. Can't take a CE, doesn't have the tools, right? His truck looks like hell, right? He's rushing from job to job to try to get more cheap inspections in. I mean, that's not what you want to be. So when you have more money, not only does the consumer think you're the best because you're charging what you should be, but also that money goes into your business. You can reinvest some of it back in, and you can also actually support the fact that you're the best inspector in town. Start doing things that the best inspector in town would do. Why don't you tonight go ask yourself a question? If I was the best inspector in town, what are the 10 things I would be doing? And then go do those tomorrow.
Good point. You're right. If you don't have belief in yourself, you can't sell yourself to others, can you?
You can't. You have to almost, trying to think, not all of our attendees here are from Texas, but you are from Texas, Paul. So it's, they say never ask a man if he's from Texas, because if he is, he's going to tell you soon enough. And if he isn't, you wouldn't want to embarrass him. So. All right, what else do we have over the next question here? I've increased my fees more than 125% since I started doing inspections in 1995. Our company has been. Can everybody read these QAs? Paul, is that how that works?
They should be able to, if everybody can open their Q&A on it. They should.
Okay, so that's pretty good, Charles, Walter. But if you think about it, if you raised your prices 125% since 1995, you didn't keep up with inflation. I just want to throw that math out to you. You probably raised your prices more than most inspectors by far. But a little bit more than doubling, I think that's what you mean. You raised it by 125% on top of it. A little bit more than doubling since 1995 would have not kept up with inflation. This is what I mean. This is generally, even like the inspectors who are raising prices are still not. We're not really keeping up with the cost of inflation. This is a perfect example. Even one of our inspectors who are really raising their prices, not keeping up. So for your average inspector, we all need to raise our prices. And for the brand new inspector, who was the question just prior to him, we're counting on you too. We're counting on two people. We're counting on the new inspector to not come in and try to capture market with low prices. You can do that with insurance that's commoditized, right? You might even be able to do it with lead pencils, right? Because a lead pencil is a lead pencil, but you shouldn't do it with home inspectors. So if you're brand new, come in high. And if you're already a veteran inspector like Paul, keep raising your prices too, because the ceiling helps pull everybody up as well. So everybody always complains about the bottom dwellers, but you also have to look at the top too. The top has to go up for there to be room to come up underneath it. All right, so the next one, in South Africa. Wow, I don't know anything about South Africa though. Must declare all patent defects. Problem here is that a transaction between the seller and convince the three parties to rather make use of a home inspector. Oh, so in your case, Malvern, the way to do that is to show stories where people didn't know and so didn't disclose. Remember, you can't disclose something you don't know. In fact, in the United States, you have no legal duty to disclose something you don't know, because how could you? And the other thing is to sort of maybe put up some stories on your website and things like that, of where it's clear that the seller knew something was wrong and didn't disclose it. There was some famous author, I can't remember, who explained in business that the seller always has a huge advantage in anything. I don't care if you're selling a car or a lead pencil or a house or whatever business, because the seller knows everything about the product and the buyer does not. So maybe you could go on the internet and find that that paragraph that he explained. It's only one paragraph where he eloquently explained how no matter what happens, the seller always has a big advantage over the buyer because he knows what the product really is. And maybe use that as maybe a marketing piece, you know, on a whatever you do, a brochure, your website, a flyer, something like that, about this kind of this famous thought process about how sellers have such an advantage. If that's the issue in South Africa, where they rely heavily on sellers' disclosures, because a seller who knows everything about it is likely not going to, in many cases, not going to be forthright in the seller's disclosure. I mean, I see this in the buyback program. Honest Americans, generally honest the rest of their lives, when they fill out a seller's disclosure, they'll check a box about something and their print actually gets small. As if, you know, I'm not going to see it if their print, if the font that they're writing with is actually small, and they make mention of like leak in basement, you know, right? When it turns out that it's, you know, it's a basement that continually floods. That's,
I tend to forget all that stuff, Nick.
yeah, that's a human nature. And I think you should, in South Africa, if there's such a disclosure, there's a disclosure form like that in the United States, in most states too. I think all states except for New Jersey is the only one. I think you can opt out of a seller's disclosure by paying a fine. So, you know, yeah, in New Jersey, you don't have to fill out your own seller's disclosure if you're willing to pay the $500 fine. There's a $500 fine. And a lot of attorneys, you know, say, well, you know, it's not a misdemeanor. It's actually, you know, you're actually agreeing not to do the seller's disclosure and paying $500. I mean, that would throw up red flags to me, but
that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Yeah, that made me question right off the bat.
Yeah, everybody else has, I think, throughout all the other states have a seller's disclosure laws and actual seller disclosure forms, but they are actually only, mimicking Old English law from about 1400 AD. That when you go to sell something, you have to tell the buyer if there's something really wrong with it. That's basically true with everything, believe it or not, whether there's a seller's disclosure sheet or not. You know, our laws are based on, well, except for 9 states, which are mining laws take precedence in Colorado and a couple other places. It's all based on Old English law mostly. And in Old England, that became the thing in maybe after the Middle Ages, that if you sell something, you know, you should be forthright in anything wrong with it. And that's basically the law of the land with anything. I mean, I don't care if even if it's a car. I mean, if someone knows there's something wrong with the car, they're supposed to tell you what's wrong with it. Otherwise, it's fraud. So you don't even need those seller's disclosures, but we have them in real estate and in home inspections. But they're based on something that's been around for, you know, almost 1,000 years, a principle. Okay, so let's go on here.
I think that's about all the questions they posted.
Okay,
guys,
so really nobody's really got anything personal, they're all general. Like nobody said, I have this problem, blah, blah, blah.
There's you one that has a fee calculator at InterNACHI been updated to today's inflation rates.
So this is a good question because people misunderstand my fee calculator. If you look at the fee calculator, it doesn't calculate anything. You have to set it up. So you have to choose how much you want to charge as a base fee. There's a separate page for this. I have defaults in there. People keep using the defaults, which is fine. It's high.
You need to raise those defaults in.
Yeah. So you have to decide what you want to do with your base fee. Like you don't want to get up in the morning and start your truck for nothing. So there's a base fee. There's a mileage fee. So you have to enter, I want to charge $1 a mile. I want to charge 50 cents a mile. I would say with the price of gas, maybe you want to raise that, right? you want to, there's a size. If you want to go by size, if the house is very large, of course, you want to charge a little bit more. There's an age factor. And these are factors you can change. You can make, some people put 0 in there. In other words, they don't want any change depending on age. Well, I lived in a home back in Pennsylvania that was owned by King George.
Wow.
So the section of the living room with the fireplace was actually built prior to the U.S. becoming a nation.
Huh.
And I assure you, if you were a home inspector, you want to charge extra for age on that house. So that's the fourth thing you could charge that you adjust. And then the last one is how busy you are. So if you're really swamped with work, then the fee calculator, I do this automatically. This is the only part that's done by me that isn't done, that you can't control. It actually charges more. It's just a way for all the people using fee calculators to get bumped up if they're really busy without them whining.
Yeah.
In any business, one of the best solutions to being too busy. And remember, home inspectors are in a different industry, odd industry, in that it's not scalable generally. I mean, it is if you hire more inspectors, but generally, if you're a one-man inspector or even a 2-man or 5-man, you can't double next week. You can't double the amount of services you can provide because you're making money mostly with your own 2 hands, right? And this is another reason why you should hire employees, but because it's a non-scalable industry, you can't just ramp up. The only solution to having more work than you can do is to raise prices. I can't stand these message board posts when I talk about marketing, when some inspector comes and says, well, I have all the work I want. I have all the work I need. I don't need to market. Well, that's not the purpose of marketing. The purpose of marketing isn't to get you only the amount of work you need. So some people think that, well, I have enough work for every week, and that's what I'm happy with. And so I don't need to market because I don't want that extra additional work. That's complete nonsense. So the purpose of marketing is to get you more work than you can do, so that you have to turn down work. So you want to market to the point where you're turning down jobs, because that gives you the stomach, so to speak, to raise prices. The purpose, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. The purpose of business isn't to work or to stay busy. If I wanted to do that, I could take a cinder block, put it on my head, and run around my house all day. And at the end of the day, I've done a lot of work and I haven't made any money. The purpose of business is to make money. And so to make money, you always want your marketing efforts to exceed your capacity. Because that is how you weed out which jobs to take, taking only the profitable ones that are not far away, not the ones that don't have any ancillary inspections, not the old houses, not the huge house that where the guy's trying to find the cheapest inspector. You want to drop all that and give those to your nice competitor. You want your marketing to, I would say, even produce 1.5 times as much work as you can do. So the man who says on the message board, well, I have enough work, I don't need any marketing, he's off by a factor of 50%.
Yeah, he doesn't want to work any harder. Right. Or what? A lot of times I hear inspectors say, oh man, I got all the business I can handle. And you get talking to them, they say, well, we do 2 inspections a week. Well, if they're happy with 2 inspections a week, I guess they're happy. But well,
it'd be nice if he were getting 3, because then he could pick 2 of 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not do the dud, and he would make more money, because you want to choose your profitable inspectors, right?
Yep.
The founder of Costco was in line, this before he founded Costco, was in line at a grocery store, and he had his whole pile of groceries, right, in his cart. And there were like people ahead of him that were only buying 1 gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, or one item at a time. And he said, this is what the problem is. So he formed Costco, where he dissuaded people to come in and just buy 1 item. He wanted the good big customer, right, who's going to spend $700 that day. And I think home inspectors could learn a lot from the founder of Costco. I mean, you don't want the guy who just wants one little thing and not make any money on it, right? I mean, you have to also remember that there's risk to everything. There's physical risk to you when you do a home inspection. Don't think you can't get hurt. I know, a friend of mine just recently just fell off the bottom rung of his ladder, the bottom rung, and hurt his ankle, and he's out for 6 weeks. So there's physical risk, right? There's also financial risk, right? You could do something that causes you to get sued or something like that, or maybe damage the house, right? There's property risk to it, right? So don't take all that risk on for $25 profit. Take that job and don't do it. Literally don't do it. Instead, work on marketing and get yourself some better jobs. So you want about 1.5 times as many jobs coming in as you could possibly do. And when you get to that point, and it's a little bit like a lot of my businesses. I mean, my bridge company has 4 times as many bridge orders as we can possibly build. Then we can charge, and we can charge, more than we need to, and to make a lot of money. Can you give some tips on how to introduce yourself to more agents? Well, so where are you? Are you still here, Paul?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm trying to find out my screen. Oh, there. Okay. So agents are, because of 2 factors recently, I would say one very recently, are becoming more elusive. The first is the internet. When I went into the inspection business, I didn't have the internet. People actually, real estate agents every now and came into the office. The second thing was COVID, right? So now you have the internet, and now you have COVID. It even happened in my own companies, like InterNACHI, for example, something you understand about. There's 35, 40 employees. Very rarely do they come into work anymore. They were just as productive at home, and with COVID proved that to us. And every month I write a $32,000 check for the rent on our office space. And all I get out of it are 2 dumpsters that I fill up with my personal garbage, because that's all there's nothing else there. The lights are off. Month after month, I pay that, right? Thinking that maybe someday we'll all come back. Well, it doesn't look like we are. Well, it's the same is true with real estate agents, right? So you're going to have to get almost into their events where they all meet. They do all meet at offices every now and then, and you have to get to those. Now you may say, oh, well, the secretary in the front receptionist, she's not going to let me come to the sales meeting. So what I did when I started out is, I remember told you I was in main line. There was an office there that was very large. It's called ReMax main line. Now ReMax agents are different than other agents in that they don't lose part of their commission to their broker. They keep the whole commission, but they pay a desk fee. So in other words, they're basically renting office space from ReMax, $2,000, and and they get all this stuff. I don't know what it is nowadays, but back in my day, the biggest corner office at ReMax was for rent for $2,000. If you're a real estate agent, you could rent that office $2,000 a month, and you had all the support of ReMax, but you didn't split your commission with your broker. You kept the whole commission. That's what made ReMax different. That's how they became so big with that system. Because who does that system attract?
Experienced realtors.
Right. Because they know they're going to make more in commission than that $2,000 rent. The average real estate agent who's only doing 2 deals a year can't possibly do ReMax.
Yeah.
Right. So once I realized that, I went to ReMax main line, and I rented that corner office for my home inspection business. I went to the broker, pitched him. So what do you care? My $2,000 is as good as yours. And just think about it. Your customers have to come into here. Your real estate staff come in. Sooner or later, somebody's going to need a home inspector, and I'm nearby locally, right? I'm so local, I'm inside your building. So the way I did it back in the day is, for years, me and Ben, and our office was inside the ReMax building.
That was creative there. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, so everybody went to go get forms or go to a sales meeting or some stupid event where I don't know, whatever they do, these real estate agents. Sometimes they have crazy events, or get a drink of water from the fountain, right? I was there, right? And of course, the receptionist is there all the time. She's not going to let anybody else any other home inspector in. She's friends with me. I'm in the building. I have basically an unannounced endorsement from the broker, ReMax. I mean, I'm inside his building, for God's sakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. My phone's oddly, the phone system we have, just a funny side note. Yeah, I told you it was in mainline, Phil. That's called mainline. But when you dialed out on your phone from that building, the caller ID said ReMax mainline. So nobody ever didn't take my call. They thought it was ReMax's main line, like from ReMax's headquarters or something.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which is really funny. And so
Now Ben said he came up with that idea. Is that right?
yeah, he probably did.
No, I'm teasing. He didn't say it.
If he came up with it, I'm taking credit for it.
That's outstanding.
It was a way to meet a lot of agents and some buyers. I mean, the outside of that office was, you know, had a lot of traffic, and then they still to this day, if you go to a real estate office, you'll see the listings taped to the window sometime, you know, so that people can look at the window as they're passing by and stuff like that. So, you know, we taped our stuff to the window too, and we had a lot of brochures, but it also helped me with brochure design. That's how I became really good at marketing brochures, was because what I decided is I told the receptionist, let the other inspectors, because I was forming InterNACHI back then, and I don't want to lock them out. So I let them put their brochures up, you know, really? Yeah. I said, let them put them up. And then I was in a position where I was seated so that I could actually see the receptionist area. And when a buyer would come into the lobby, you know, for whatever reason, they're meeting a real estate agent there, they're going to go take their cars together and drive somewhere, look at homes that day or whatever. I watched them sometimes look through the home inspection brochures. And there were three possibilities that a consumer would do when they looked at a real estate and a home inspection brochure. They would either not touch it. They would pick it up, look at it, and put it back, or they would pick it up and take it. And so I was trying to figure out why they would take certain home inspection brochures and why they wouldn't. And I came up with an ingenious idea. I just asked them. So I said, why did you take that home inspection brochure? And I learned a lot about marketing that way. And so that was another benefit of having an office inside a real estate office. You get to meet the end client, which is the buyer, ahead of doing the home inspection, often, many cases. Remember, when we get out of the truck and say, hi, I'm Paul Roebuck, I'm from blah, blah, blah home inspections. It's nice to meet you, and I'm here to start your home inspection. Unlike any other business, you're meeting your client for the very first time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in businesses where I have to go sell jobs, contracting business. You have to go kiss ugly babies and pet their poodle like you have in the background there, and all that stuff, right? To sell the job, right? But the home inspection business is very different in that we don't sell jobs. We don't, other than when the phone rings, there's no ability to go out first, meet the client, sell them the job, and then come back and do it. When you're getting out of your truck on a home inspection, it's very likely you're meeting your client for the very first time. And so because of that, because of that quirk in our industry, marketing becomes super important. It's more important than in other businesses because the sales opportunity, which is on the phone, is so small. And often it's non-existent. The real estate agent schedules it, right?
Right. So
can you imagine being in a business where you don't have an opportunity to sell? If you don't have an opportunity to sell, you better market pretty strong. So
very good points. Wow.
Okay, what else do we have? What is the next one? What company expenses can we write off on our tax returns? Everything. You can write off absolutely everything. I mean, I can't imagine something not being written off, including the actual footwear, your footwear. I write off my footwear, right? So an employee doesn't have this advantage, right? So, and maybe you take part of your compensation as an employee and part of your compensation as, you know, a distribution, which is probably the best way to do it. But the employee, an employee doesn't, you know, my employee, Tiffany's sitting not far from here. When she drives from her house to here, that's not a deduction to her. It is if you're you know, subcontractor of your own company, right? Or if you're taking distribution. Her footwear is not deductible. I don't know what she's wearing, but she can't deduct her heels, whereas you can. So there's very rarely is there any expense that isn't deductible. InterNACHI, is membership is deductible, ladders, shoes, everything, certainly your gas. So part of the big advantage of being in business is that you can deduct everything, which is why I think they just hired 87,000 new IRS agents, and they announced what they're going after. They're going after the smaller to medium-sized business owners. Only 1%, only 2% of all people making $1 million or more were audited. That means that people are making a couple $100,000 were rarely audited. So they want to go after us as home inspectors, because that's where all the money is. Remember, there are only 734 billionaires in the United States. 734. So if you ever hear a politician ragging on billionaires, billionaires got to pay their fair share, and billionaires this, and the billionaires that have the loopholes and stuff like that. It's a politician who has no political backbone at all. It's easy to pick on 734 people. That's only 734 votes he or she will lose, right? It's easy to pick on a crowd of 734.
Absolutely.
With one hand, with your mouth, and while your hand is signing a bill to send 87,000 IRS agents after middle-class business owners. Why? Why don't they go after the billionaires? There's not enough money. There's not enough of them.
Yeah.
There's a little room full of them, and they don't have their wealth in income. Remember, it's income tax. Always remember that. It's income tax. It's not wealth tax. So people complain about, Elon Musk. Actually, my understanding is that from his divorce papers that he takes almost no income at all. They either borrow on their assets or just don't live high on a hog. I mean, think about Jeff Bezos. He could have 100 mansions, income that covers 100 mansions, and that income will be a very small portion of his wealth.
Yeah.
So, as long as it's just income tax, you're never going to collect it from billionaires. You're going to collect it from people like us. And apparently, as of a couple of days ago, that's exactly what they intend to do. So deduct everything. Okay. What else do we have? Company is doing well by offering additional benefits, a profit share, etc. We do this. The owner's compensated the same way. How much would you suggest would be an acceptable take from the company? I would say the acceptable take is 0. So it turns out psychologically, and I argue this with Chris Morrell all the time, because we give our employees a lot of nice little benefits, that they're not as appreciated as much as it costs you. So it might feel good to be generous to your employees and to cut them in, but they don't deserve to be cut in. They're not business owners. They're employees. They can leave tomorrow with no notice. You can't fire them with no notice. They put up 0 capital to start your business. You put up everything. They're at no risk. They can go and compete with you tomorrow. I know it feels good, and it feels like, oh, we're all team, but find that camaraderie somewhere else, I would say. Your employees are in their minds in a different class than you. Don't you make the mistake that they didn't and consider them to be part of your team and all that stuff like that. An employee is not something to be so terribly friendly with, I would say. I employ 112 people. And obviously, maybe I'm a likable guy to some of them, I don't know, but I get invited here and there, right? To this party, to go to bowling, or to go to, let's go have, where are you doing your drinking is one of the ones, right? All that stuff, right? And all that crazy stuff, right? I don't go out with any of them. I don't go do anything with any of them. I just don't, I mean, I know what I am, and I know my position in this company, and we're not a team when it comes to splitting up my profits, because those profits are going to need to be piled up, something an employee won't do, for lean times, or when we want to do R&D, or we want to grow, we want to do more marketing. We're going to have to spend my money, not the money that they got. So I know that sounds harsh. Probably people are going to say, well, he's really terrible to his employees. I'm not. I'm very good to my employees, but they get paid exactly something, and that's it. I'm not here to split my profits with them. So I would say the answer is 0.
Yeah, I saw that big trailer you have where they're cooking for the employees and stuff you got. I mean,
Right. So every day at 11, all my employees can come to my farm, and I have a chef. It's actually Hunter Shepherd, who's Kenton Shepherd's son. He's a chef, and I have a 1-ton grill, and we cook for all of them, and they can eat. But secretly, it's not because I'm trying to be particularly nice to them to feed them every day at 11. I know in the construction business that, I hire some rough guys. Some guys have been in prison, maybe some, I would say a rougher crowd. And guys that aren't very good with money. But when they wake up in the morning and they know that at least they're going to eat good, they can eat all they want. It's all you can eat every day at 11 in my place. They come into work. I mean, you should see, the amount of people that come to work every day in my construction crew probably surpasses everybody in the nation. I mean, I have almost a full attendance every day. Feed them every day, feed them well, It also provides a center point, because we're in 14 different companies, so we're all doing different things and everything. It brings them all together where they can chat a little bit about business and talk and maybe help, keep things integrated in the companies, so that they know what one hand is doing and what the other isn't. I mean, on some of these webinars, I should show you my little office. I have all the keys on a keyboard, so I can see what keys are missing, so I can figure out what everybody's doing and where they're at. So it helps with some of that, and helps with a little bit of, I guess, a team feeling. But it's not because I'm trying to share my profits with them. It just makes good sense, especially on Fridays. The construction business, if you let them loose to go to lunch on Fridays, they're either not going to come back, or they're going to come back in a state that's not going to be safe for them to operate. And so keeping them on the farm, literally, is a purely financial business decision to me, and don't tell them that. Okay. Let's move on and see what else we have. Are we done here? Are we pretty
let's see. I had a few more questions there.
okay, what else do we have?
Said, what were the specific observations about successful brochures and other marketing?
Well, I can't say I'm a humble guy, but I would say that, throughout life, one should be humble. I think Jesus taught us that, right? He wasn't a flamboyant personality. I would describe him as a humble person, right? Yet he accomplished a lot being humble. And so I would say throughout life, you should mimic that. You should try to be humble. I fail at it. There's one exception, and that's in marketing. This is no time to be humble. This is the time to be Muhammad Ali or whatever braggart you want to think about when you think about it. This is the time to brag and tout all the reasons they should hire you. And so I would say if I had to sum it up on a webinar with Paul here in one day, the biggest problem I see with brochures is humility. They're very matter of fact, often too text heavy, listing all the nice things they've done or something like that. This is not that time to do that. This is not a resume. This is not a time to even be what I would say calm. Your brochure should almost have a sense of fierceness to it. So I can't go into all the brochure stuff that I know about. I know more about brochures probably than a lot of people, but that is probably the overall thing. This is no time to be humble. Other than that, a brochure with you, if you're over the age of, I would say 40, exploit that. I mean, what consumers are generally buying is not the inspection report. It's not the inspection, and it's not the inspection report. What they're generally purchasing, when you really ask consumers, like I did, what are they looking for? It's whiskers. If I had to describe it with one word, it's whiskers. So if you have them, it's time to use them.
So
right?
that's been my problem all these years, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I tried to make years ago, maybe 20 years, I tried to come up with the marketing equivalent of whiskers, and I succeeded. And it's worked like a charm, which is certified master inspector. It's such a cocky idea, and it's such an understandable and instantly understandable concept. So whereas if you write all your experiences down, I've been in business for 15 years and I've been this and I did this, I like this license and this course I took and all this stuff, that can't compete, all that text, that resume looking text, with those three little words. Certified Master Inspector is the marketing manifestation of Whiskers. And that's why it works so well.
Cool. And that does work.
It does work.
What do you
I mean,
think
listen,
about,
listen, I've created hundreds of things to help home inspectors in my career. Most of them don't work. They want to talk about being humble. I would say 97% of the programs that I came up for home inspectors to try to help them failed. Generally, if you graded me, if my grade school teachers graded me, I'm a high school dropout. If my grade school teacher, I can't say high school teachers because I don't have any. If my grade school teachers came back and graded me, they would say I'm failure at helping home inspectors, because about 97% of the crazy stuff I came up with after I tested it didn't work, and that's why you'll never hear of it. The few things I have, the buyback program, the certified master inspector, the few things that are left on the table, now that you've had a home inspection book customized, those few things, 3 or 4 things, they really work well. And the reason they work well is because they are the result of dead bodies of my ideas laying around all over the place that just simply didn't work. Certified master inspector is definitely one that does.
That's a good one. What do you think about the inspectors going out and giving education classes where they're actually giving the realtors continued ed hours for their license when they teach these courses?
Okay, so it would be great for you and bad for me. Now, why? So everybody listening to this webinar says, why would Nick say that it's good for Paul to do that and bad for Nick Gromicko to do it? It has to do with personality. I mean, your face even is lovable. No kidding. I mean, you're a likable guy. So that has nothing to do with the course itself or the technical part, or getting their CE for free instead of $20. I mean, nobody cares, right? It's your personality in front of those people. People are people. It matters. I have the personality of a cinder block, so I have no chance of going in front of a bunch of real estate agents and having them like me afterwards. I mean, I might succeed at teaching them something, but they're not going to have this affinity to me that they would to someone likable. So if you're a likable person, and if you're unlikable and are unsure, you might have to look at yourself objectively. But if you're a likable personality, I would say it might be a great decision for you. And Ben can help you with that. He can get you licensed in any state to teach in front of real estate agents. It's a little bit inefficient.
A couple other questions, Nick, and we're about ready to wrap this thing up for you. Let's see. It said, in my experience, sellers deem a home inspector as someone who assists the agent to drive the price lower.
Well, remember, any objection that a seller has that you can sense is something you should exploit. So if, every complaint, every time I get a seller's complaint, like, your InterNACHI member was just here and, he went up on my roof and that roof hasn't leaked in 35 years. And he says it has to be replaced. The dumbass doesn't even know what he's talking about. It's never leaked in 35 years, or whatever. I always tell the seller, listen, whatever you hate about that inspector being like a little bit too nitpicky, is he nitpicky? Yeah, he was really nitpicky. And, I said, and you're moving locally? Yeah, maybe you should hire that same guy. Oh, that's a good idea. So, I would always, if you're a thorough inspector, I would always have a leave behind packet. There's a leave behind samples and stuff like that on InterNACHI's website, because you always want to be not only trying to get the seller's inspection, but also you want to do something which most inspectors don't do, which is to work your existing client base. I don't know how long you've been an inspector, Paul, longer than me. I'm sure you have a massive past client base. If you ever really needed work, you could go to that, do a marketing piece and hit them all with it. Just do conventional marketing. Remember, again, people that pick on me for, marketing. Does anybody know what Coca-Cola is or tastes like? Everybody does, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I realize there's a lot of seminars on relationship marketing, right? But it's very inefficient and it caps you. So if your whole business is based on real estate agents liking you personally and your smile, and that's why they give you home inspections, you are it's probably gonna work. And that's the problem with it. It's gonna work, but you're going to be capped financially. I mean, in all my businesses, and I made a lot of money. I mean, I'm pretty well off. I did not ever rely on my personality because I couldn't. My personality sucks. So that's a blessing. It's a blessing that God gave me. There's 3 good things he did to me. You let me grow up poor, you let me get shot in the leg, and he gave me a personality that I can't rely on. And because I can't rely on my personality, I had to do real marketing like Coca-Cola. Does anybody know the president of the Coca-Cola company? I sure don't. I don't know if he's a nice guy or he's a nice woman or they have a nice personality or not. And today at lunch, I'm going to buy a Coca-Cola. And when you turn on the TV, you're probably going to see an ad for Coca-Cola. Now, here's a company where, 7 billion people drink 8 ounces on average of their product every day, and yet they're still doing conventional marketing. So, in my opinion, snail mail, brochures, conventional marketing, ads, and things like that, those all are things we should be doing. I know there's a couple of groups out there that are really big on relationship marketing, and that stuff works, but it will cap you. There's no way on earth I'm going to give you, I have a lot of other companies, but I'm going to give you one you're familiar with, which is InterNACHI, the nonprofit group I formed. Could you imagine if I told you, well, I got my 29,654 members by driving around the country delivering chocolates, dark chocolates to the inspectors, and hoping that they liked Nick Gromicko's personality enough to join InterNACHI. Do you think I'd have 29,654? Do you think I'd have 96% of the entire inspection industry if I relied on relationship marketing? No, I had to deal with conventional real marketing. And so I'm a fan of it because it works. And so is apparently the president of Coca-Cola.
Absolutely. All right.
And that, should we stop?
Yeah, I appreciate you being with us today. It's a pleasure to see
I would
you.
love to do it again.
Yeah, it was always fun. You always have such a ton of wisdom to share, man.
Well, I'm going to ask the listeners to do one thing for me. Go on Facebook or InterNACHI's message board, please, and just say that you took my webinar and that you found some value in it. And hopefully next time I do one, I could help more people for longer and more people will attend. I'm not here to pitch a particular philosophy. I'm not here to sell you anything. Just offered help today, and I would love to help more people.
Beautiful, beautiful
Thank you,
statement.
Paul.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for attending our webinar. And as Nick said, go on and give him a good report on the Facebook pages. And you guys take care. Good seeing y'all. Till next time.